Human uncertainty as an impediment to scientific method. The human uncertainty principle not only prevents the social sciences from producing results comparable to physics, it interferes with the scientific method in other ways as well. I shall mention only one of them. As we have seen, natural phenomena provide a genuinely independent criteria for judging the validity of generalizations, but the facts produced by social processes do not do so because they are influenced by theories held by participants. This makes the social theories themselves subject to reflexivity. In other words, they serve not only a cognitive but also a manipulative function. To be sure, the generalizations and observations of natural scientists are also theory laden, and they influence the selection of facts, but do not influence the facts themselves. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle showed that the act of observation impacts a quantum system. But the discovery of the uncertainty principle itself did not alter the behavior of quantum particles, 1 eta. The principle applied before Heisenberg discovered it and will continue to apply long after human observers are gone. But social theories, whether Marxism, market fundamentalism, or the theory of reflexivity, can affect the subject matter to which they refer. Scientific method is supposed to be devoted to the pursuit of truth, but why should social science confine itself to passively studying social phenomena when it can also actively change the state of affairs? The temptation to use the social theories to change reality rather than to understand it is much greater than in natural science. Indeed, economists commonly talk about normative versus positive economics, but there is no such thing as a normative physics. It is a fundamental difference between natural and social sciences that needs to be recognized. A spectrum between physical and social sciences. In my argument, I have drawn a sharp distinction between the social and the natural sciences, but such dichotomies are usually not found in reality. Rather, we introduce them in our efforts to make some sense out of an otherwise confusing reality. Indeed, while the dichotomy between physics and the social sciences seems clear-cut, there are other sciences, such as biology and the study of animal societies, that occupy intermediate positions. The distinction I have drawn between natural and social science consists of a presence or absence of thinking participants who have a will of their own. That begs the question of what constitutes a thinking participant. One might reasonably ask whether a chimpanzee, a dolphin, or a computerized stock trading program is a thinking participant. In some fields, superior data crunching capacity may trump the human imagination, as the chess contest between Big Blue and Gary Kasparov has shown. And the automatic trading systems appear to be currently outperforming hedge funds run by humans. However, I would note that humans have some unique characteristics, notably language, emotions, and culture. Both our individual and shared subjective realities are far richer and more complex than any other creatures, including the product of artificial intelligence. Clearly, there are some problems that set natural and social science apart. I have focused on reflexivity. It presents itself in both the subject matter and its scientific study so that it may be treated as two closely interrelated problems. In the subject matter, the problem presents itself as the human uncertainty principle that has no equivalent in natural science. For scientific method, the problem is more complicated because the scientists are also human beings and their thinking also serves two functions. This problem presents itself in both natural and social science, but the analysis in various possible solutions yields different results. Science is a discipline that seeks to perfect the cognitive function by artificially isolating itself from the manipulative function. It does not by submitting itself to a number of conventions, such as insisting on empirical tests that can be replicated and observed by others. Popper's scheme shows that a natural science can achieve by obeying those rules and conventions. As I have shown, the human uncertainty principle presents social science from matching these achievements. But there is also a flip side to be considered. What happens when those rules and conventions are not observed? Remember that my criterion of demarcation between natural and social science is that the latter is reflexive. The former is not. In other words, social science can change objective reality by influencing the participants' views, but the natural science cannot do so because its subject matter has no thinking participants. This is what I meant when I remarked in the Alchemy of Finance book that I wrote, that the alchemists made a mistake in trying to change the nature of base metals by incantation. Instead, they should have focused their attention on the financial markets, where they would have succeeded. Now I need to take my analysis further. Natural science can work wonders as long as it follows Popper's scheme, because it has a purely objective criterion, namely the facts by which the truth or validity of the laws can be judged, but they cannot produce anything worthwhile by cheating on the testing process. Cars that do not obey the laws of physics will not move. Airplanes will not fly. How about social science? We have seen that, according to Popper's scheme, it cannot be expected to produce results comparable to the natural sciences. Conversely, social theories also serve a manipulative function, and their influence on objective reality may be quite successful in achieving their goal, at least for a while, until objective reality reasserts itself and the outcome fails to correspond to expectations. There are many manipulative statements that fit this pattern. President Obama managed to make the post-2008 recession shorter and shallower by asserting that the economy was fundamentally sound and promising a speedy recovery. But he paid a heavy political price when reality failed to live up to his promises. Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan was a masterful manipulator, and his dolphinic utterances were more difficult to prove wrong. Both Freud and Marx sought to gain acceptance for their theories by claiming scientific status. One of the most interesting cases is the efficient market hypothesis and its political companion, market fundamentalism. we shall see that the mechanism that provides some degree of justification for the claim that the markets are always right is reflexivity, not rational expectations. Yet, a false explanation can be subjectively more appealing than what I consider to be the true one. The efficient market hypothesis allows economic theory to lay claim to the status of a hard science like physics, and the market fundamentalism allows the financially successful to claim that they are serving the public interest by pursuing their self-interest. That is a powerful combination that dominated the field until it caused a lot of damage in the financial crisis of 2007-2008. Surprisingly, it survived that debacle. The conservative wing of the Republican Party managed to pin the blame for the financial crisis on the government rather than on the private sector. The limits and the promise of social science. Interestingly, both Karl Popper and Friedrich Hayek recognize in their famous exchange in the pages of Economica, Popper 1944, that the social sciences cannot produce results comparable with physics. Hayek inveighed against the mechanical and uncritical application of the quantitative methods of natural science. He called it scientism, and Popper wrote the poverty of historicism, in which he argued that the history is not determined by universally valid scientific laws. Nevertheless, Popper proclaimed that he called the doctrine of the unity of the method, by which he meant that both natural and social sciences should use the same methods and be judged by the same criteria. By proclaiming the doctrine, Popper sought to distinguish pseudo-scientific theories like those of Marx and Freud from mainstream economics. As mentioned earlier, Popper did not go far enough. Rational choice theory and the efficient market hypothesis are just as pseudo-scientific as Marxist and Freudian theories. As I see it, the implication of the human uncertainty principle is that the subject matter of the natural and social sciences is fundamentally different. Therefore, they need to develop different methods and should be held to different standards. Economic theory should not be expected to meet the standards established by Newtonian physics. In fact, if it did produce universal valid laws, economic profit itself would be impossible, as Nett, 1921, pointed out. If all changes were to take place in accordance with the invariable and universally known laws, so that they could be foreseen for an indefinite period in advance of their occurrence, profit or loss would not arise. I contend that Popper's scheme cannot produce results in the human sphere comparable with the amazing achievements of physics. The slavish imitation of a natural science can easily produce misleading results, sometimes with disastrous consequences. Look at the consequences of a rational expectations theory. It prevented the economists from recognizing reflexivity and encouraged the development of synthetic financial instruments and risk management techniques that ignore Bayesian uncertainty. My contention begs the question of what social scientists should do, what methods they should use, and by what criteria they should be judged. I have only a partial answer. Any valid methodology of social science must explicitly recognize both fallibility and reflexivity and the nagging uncertainty they create. Empirical testing sought to remain a decisive criteria for judging whether a theory qualifies as scientific. But in light of the human uncertainty principle in social systems, it cannot always be as rigorous as Popper's scheme requires. Now can universally and timelessly valid theories be expected to yield determinate predictions because future events are contingent on future decisions, which are bound to be fallible. If economics, contingent, time and context-bound theories may yield more useful explanations and predictions than timeless and universal generalizations based on ungrounded assumptions.